I think we find ourselves in a really interesting place in 10 years, and I think our roles will look very different. I think accounting firms potentially will look very different with ownership structures and things like that. So I'm fascinated to see where it goes.
My guest today is Sarah McEachern, a partner at Nexia Edwards Marshall NT. Nexia is an accounting and financial services firm that strives to maintain its reputation being one of the most respected and professional firms in South Australia and the Northern Territory. They employ smart, professional, ethical and dedicated people who are great at what they do. Sarah is a true example of that. Sarah's worked for Nexia for 18 years and she's been the treasurer of a number of organisations, including her current position with the Triathlon Club. Hi, I'm Sarah Bartholomew's from YouLegal. The Accountants on Purpose podcast showcases inspiring accountants who are leaders in their field.
And then it just came to me like a bolt of blue.
What makes them tick?
Love it.
How did they get to where they are?
I want to inspire.
And what do they do now for their teams, their clients, and the world? Where did you grow up?
I grew up, I spent the first 6 years of my life in the Barossa Valley in Tanunda.
Beautiful.
And then Dad shifted to Adelaide for work, so we came back here. I think that's where my love of red wine, particularly the Barossa Shiraz, comes from. I think it was, put in there at an early age. And then I lived in Adelaide all my life until 5 years ago when I made the move up to Darwin with an opportunity that came up. So
you are stranded on an island, but luckily you've salvaged 3 items. What are they?
3 items. It's pretty tricky to narrow that down when I was thinking about this, but I would definitely say my pod machine so I could still have coffee. That is a serious a thing that I don't actually think that I could live without. I would probably say a bottle of gin just to, I quite enjoy a glass of that to relax, and maybe my bike.
And helmet.
Probably, but that's 4, so hopefully there's no cars on this island.
That's a good
It's pretty
point.
low traffic.
And there's roads? Do you ride off-road?
Yeah, I can ride off-road, on-road.
On sand?
Yeah, why not? Bit more tricky, but good way to get around.
So do you have dairy? Like, do you drink coffee with milk?
Yeah, I'll take it how it comes.
Yes.
Just the caffeine fix is really
important.
But yeah, I do have dairy.
Start the day.
Yeah, start the day.
Good. What is something that most people don't know about you?
Probably that I played the violin growing up and was actually involved in an orchestra.
Wow.
So that's quite different to how people perceive me now, sort of being more on the sporty side of
yes.
things. But I have a real soft spot for, classical music. And yeah, I really enjoy music and I did enjoy playing the violin. I don't anymore. I would be incredibly bad at it now. But
so did you do that through school, the orchestra side, or was that like an outside activity?
No, that was through school, at school. So yeah, we had lots of good opportunities though. Got to do a bit of travel and things like that. So
excellent.
Yeah, it was good fun.
You must have been pretty good as an orchestra.
Well, it was sort of everybody kind of got to go, so I don't know about that. But
there was no
all
audition
inclusive.
process.
No, not really.
Well, it does sound like it was fun.
It was good fun. It was.
So you've been working at Nexia Edwards Marshall for 18 years now, which is quite an incredible achievement. Can you describe your journey to becoming partner and what some of the challenges have been?
Sure. It's been quite the journey. It doesn't feel like 18 years. I was, when sort of thinking about some of these questions when you sent them out, I was like, goodness, 18 years, that is a long time. I actually started as an undergraduate.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied part-time and worked full-time, which ended up being a really good way to get through uni with a bit more focus. And being able to earn some money as well as get some practical experience along the way. So started out doing that. Through my time at Edwards Marshall and now Nexia, I've actually held had the opportunity to work in a number of different roles. So although I've been in the one place for 18 years, sort of moved around to different divisions. At one point I was actually took over the finance manager role for Nexia.
Oh, wow.
Like within our firm. So
yes.
you're able to see the other side of the fence.
And understand more deeply probably how the business operates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which, as a non-owner,
Mhm.
is a really
Yeah.
insightful
Without
opportunity.
a doubt. I mean, obviously things in accounting world, whip debtors and all this kind of stuff, that was really at the forefront of, oh, wow, these things are really important, and why we do our timesheets and, all of these sorts of things, which sort of you think sometimes like, do we really have to do that? Whereas, yes, we actually do. And yes, they are very important parts of of the whole
practice.
process.
And also how potentially to influence those different levers for the business.
Absolutely.
And explain why they're important to people that you might not have been able to do before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're sort of living and breathing that, and with cash flow and all sorts of things. So that was a really good experience. Subsequent to that, I've also sort of been virtual CFO for a number of clients as well, which has been great, presenting to boards and, really sort of rolling your sleeves up and understanding the issues of different businesses and how that's different to sort of being an advisor to actually, sometimes getting in there and really getting your hands dirty. So that's provided really good insight and experience. Then 5 years ago, the opportunity came up that we were opening up an office in Darwin, and I sort of put my hand up to go up there. Life is very different
yes,
up there.
It is.
Different client base. A lot of work in the not-for-profit sector, which I actually really enjoy, and a lot of work around remote communities as well, which has just given a really different insight. So it's been 18 years has sort of gone through in the blink of an eye, but it's been really good and really varied sort of journey along the way. So.
And are you loving living in Darwin?
Yeah, I do. It's different, but it's a really friendly place because everyone's from somewhere else. It's actually quite easy to meet people, and everyone kind of is very inclusive. So I kind of look back and I think I'm so lucky to have great family and friends here in Adelaide that I love coming back to catch up with. But it's quite different to Darwin, where it's just so inclusive, and I think. In my second week up there, I got invited to go on a camping trip with these people that I barely knew. And I was like, oh, well, I guess we'll go and do that.
I guess we try new things
Exactly. So, and yeah, you just really hit it off, and yeah, it's good. I enjoy it.
Excellent. How has COVID-19 impacted your work and life in general?
Yeah, well, we've been really lucky up in the Territory. So from a personal perspective, there was people were very conscious. Territorians aren't really known for playing by the rules.
Oh,
we don't like rules.
Of course.
No. You don't have to wear a helmet on a bike up there. You don't have to have a boat license. There's all these sort of very strange things.
They only recently implemented speed limits.
Yes, exactly. So we don't really like rules, but for that first period, because our population is so vulnerable, everybody actually did pay attention. But since we haven't had any cases, life is back to normal, other than having to check in when you go places.
And use more hand sanitizer than before.
Exactly. Life is back to normal. And to be honest, it was only for quite a short period of time that we were impacted by some of those restrictions. So personally, it didn't impact. From a work perspective, working remotely and managing a team remotely definitely was different.
New experience.
Indeed. Lots of meetings on Zoom and Teams. I actually found it quite exhausting because you're sort of dealing with people through a screen and not sort of feeding off their energy when you're in the same room as them and little things like that. And, where you might have had some breaks where you go to grab a coffee or something and have a chat to someone that, wasn't available. So you sort of find yourself working and come to the end of the day and be like, whoa.
So there's actually a neuroscience reason why Zoom makes us so tired like that.
Really?
I am on a board with Dr. Fiona Kerr, who's a neuroscientist, and she explained this to me. Apparently when you hear people's voices that you get all these things in your brain that kind of give you rewards. And then that happens in person as well. But then when you see someone over a screen, the in-person neurons start looking like you can see them in person, and they just look and they never find them. So that's why she says we get so tired, because our brain's trying to do all these things that we're not even aware of that it can't resolve because I was finding the same thing by the end of it. So I'm in a choir and we did choir over Zoom, and it just seemed like another Zoom meeting to me because, like you, I was just on Zoom all day and I was like, I just can't do it anymore, even though this is something I enjoy and is meant to give me good feelings and wellness feelings and all the good feelings. I found I just didn't get that unless I was in person with them.
Yeah, it's that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
because I was like, I feel like I should be more efficient and all of this kind of stuff, but sort of and be able to work. I mean, I think the other thing that was really important over that time was boundaries.
Yes,
as well.
Otherwise, you could just work all the time.
Exactly, and keeping some kind of routine. So I was quite diligent about doing that. But yeah, that makes so much sense.
It's a good fact.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing, I actually travel a lot around the territory.
Yes.
So I go to lots of remote locations.
So you had to stop
all of that, which has been really good because some of these things that have happened over that period of time, we've sort of kept in place. So it works well for the client, and also it's good for us because we don't need to travel so much. There's still absolutely a place for face to face,
definitely,
but just getting the technology working to be able to do that has been really beneficial.
Forced it.
Exactly.
Nexia strives to hire smart, professional, ethical and dedicated people, and you're obviously all of those things because otherwise you wouldn't have lasted so long. But is there a particular quality out of those that you say you embody the most?
That's a really tricky question. But I would probably say dedicated or committed is probably the one that I embody the most. I mean, as a leader, I'm not someone that's going to go and stand on the rooftops and, preach and do all of those things that
be
often
rah-rah.
Exactly that often is associated with leadership. I'm far more of a leader by example. So I think through dedication and commitment, and putting myself out there through challenging things like e.g. moving, where I didn't know anyone, or I'm leaving a very good life here in Adelaide with really great family and friends, and taking a big step, and that was for career advancement. I saw a really good opportunity to do that, which has thankfully paid off.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say dedicated / committed, and I think that's I really enjoy that aspect of building a team, and I think they also feed off of that, seeing being able to work hard, but also have a bit of a laugh at the same time. Cool. Got it.
You are the treasurer for a triathlon club. Tell me more about that. What inspired you to be part of that organisation?
Sure. I have a long history of playing various sports. I did start out in hockey, and then through injuries and whatever, I've ended up in triathlon. And throughout that time, I've found it a really great way to make friends. I have long-lasting friends, from under 12s to
it seems like an
now.
Individual sport. Triathlon.
It is, but there's a really big team aspect as far as the training goes. There's training with people and having coffee and all of that sort of stuff. You actually really get to know people. Going for a 4-hour bike ride is a really good way to get to know someone when you've got their ear.
I cannot talk while I'm riding a bike for 4 hours. I've never ridden a bike for 4 hours, but I don't imagine I'd be great conversationalist. I guess someone could talk at me.
Well, however it works. But so you end up spending a lot of time with some of these people. So from that aspect, it's a really good way. Like, it's a real sense of community and a really good way to make friends. And being a treasurer, or using my skill set as I have across various boards and committees and whatnot over the years, is a really good way to give back. And I think it's a bit of a two-way learning thing, or a two-way thing. So I'm able to provide some skills, and in return I get lots of development that I probably wouldn't otherwise have got, dealing with people that you wouldn't perhaps normally associate with,
or have as clients.
Exactly. So I think it's been an incredibly valuable experience for me over the years. I've learnt I think I've grown a lot as well. I used to sort of, when I first stepped onto committees and boards and stuff, I'd sort of just, present the numbers and probably wouldn't say too much. But, as time goes on, you kind of learn your craft a little bit and learn, when to speak up and
give more commentary.
Yeah, exactly. And just also provide a different perspective.
And maybe help educate people as well about
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we as accountants often take it for granted. We see a set of numbers and we can kind of interpret what the story potentially is around that. But as I've, learnt, that's definitely not the case for most of the population. So be able to break that down and learn what people tend to understand and what they don't, rather than just being presented with a page of numbers is something that's, it's beneficial, I think, for both of us, to be honest.
Definitely. I was thinking the other day about my turnover for the year for U-Legal for January to December. And I imagine if I told my parents what it was, they would just be like, well, why aren't we living in the Bahamas or something? Because unless you're a business owner or have that financial mind, I suppose, the numbers seem astronomical compared to what actually sort of comes out at the end.
Yep.
And how you have to pay tax and there's all these kind of outgoings that you don't really understand if you've always been an employee.
100%.
So I can see that would be challenging to educate people like that. And for me, I was like, I don't know if it's even worth it with my family members, for example, who aren't business owners. So picking the point at which it's what to explain, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation and there's lots of misconceptions that, high turnover must mean that that's, a really good thing, but that doesn't necessarily, relate to profit at the end of the day. And then you're showing profit, but that doesn't necessarily, flow into cash flow, for example, which is sort of the most important thing. If you're not
keep the wheels
Exactly.
turning.
I mean, you mentioned tax. If you're not saving to pay your tax when that comes at the end of the year, then, it can cause all sorts of trouble and things like that. So, it's a tricky.
Yeah.
Small business is really tricky.
It is.
I feel privileged to be able to work with a lot of small businesses and help them on that journey.
Yeah. I know, because I guess when you start, you're more like my parental mindset and you grow into it.
You do, and you learn lots along the way.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't buy lotto tickets, so that island where I have my 3 things, I'm not sure that that's going to be an
possibility.
Outcome, a possibility. Look, I think I'll still be in the accounting profession, but I actually think it'll look a whole lot different. I think that there's a real shift with the use of technology and being more of an advisor and being able to communicate, as we said before, being able to explain and interpret, data rather than being the number crunchers that we've been associated with in the past. I think that's a really important shift. And I think it's going to be an interesting journey as leaders to be able to have younger staff coming through and being able to educate them to still understand debits and credits and all that boring stuff, but then being able to also have all these, soft skills really about building relationships with people and writing. It's more now, I think the profession is far more, and it will continue down this path than actually just crunching stuff, to being more interpreters and, building relationships and things like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the more senior accountants like you have done this early kind of, in law we call it clerkship, but the early everything, especially you working all around the firm, whereas the ones who are coming through now won't get that experience.
Yeah.
They'll just have to learn it academically a lot of it because, as you say, technology does do so much of it.
It does, but, it still relates to garbage in, garbage out with technology. So to understand when you are looking at garbage or when something's not quite
Yes.
right, like how the background of that.
So then all
Is
the
this really-
training has to change.
Exactly. It's a really interesting situation, I think, that we find ourselves in, because it's changing and it's changing quickly.
Because there was also a period where, and some of the accountants I've talked to for this series also have offshore teams.
Mhm.
And so I've said to them, well, if the people in different countries are learning the skills that our junior accountants used to learn, like, do they not need to know them as well?
Mm. Yeah.
So I get confused about that, I suppose. It's either technology or skilling up developing nations.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion is, and offshoring is really common, but I still think that that's going to be overrun by technology because it's just progressing at such a rapid
pace.
rate that, and they'll do it, technology will do it far more accurately, obviously providing it's set up properly, than what any human ever could sort of punch stuff in. So I think we find ourselves in a really interesting place in 10 years, and I think our roles will look very different. I think accounting firms potentially will look very different, with ownership structures and things like that. So I'm fascinated to see where it goes.
Watch this space.
Indeed.
What is your purpose?
My purpose. This was a really good test and a good opportunity to kind of take a step back and think about it, because it's probably not something that we do on a regular basis. Well, I probably haven't for a little while. And my purpose was helping people improve, whether that be clients, staff, or myself personally, from a personal and professional development type perspective. I think my purpose is that sort of helping develop people and helping them improve and learn new things, helping clients grow their businesses and improve as well. So, yeah, that's what I sort of summarised my purpose.
Yeah,
as.
because that, I think, having talked to you today is reflected in probably every area that you talked about.
Yeah, that's sort of, I was like, well, everything is sort of coming back to that,
It's good to be able to articulate it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people really do have trouble with that.
Well, initially I was like, that's
good to get the
scary,
questions in advance.
Indeed, it is. It definitely is.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have?
Not from a work perspective, but I will say that during this crazy time that we sort of find ourselves in, while people are sort of, it looks like we're going to be not trapped, that we're not going to be able to travel outside of Australia for a little while, I would encourage people to consider coming to visit the top end. Because there are some amazing things, amazing sites up there that you won't see anywhere else around Australia. It is a beautiful place. Be careful of the time of year that you come up, because it can be a little warm.
Very warm.
But there's some pretty amazing sites to see up there, and I think it's on a lot of people's bucket list to come up and visit.
Yes.
But I would just really encourage people that, I think this is the perfect opportunity.
It is. I was in Darwin last winter and I remember getting out just thinking, why do people go to Bali?
Yeah.
When they can come here.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
It is a good spot, and winter has become my favourite. I used to really dislike winter because it's cold and miserable.
Yes.
Everything, but it's now my favourite month of the year, because that's when we have our best weather for sure.
You do. So there you go. Winter. Heading to the top end.
Indeed.
Thanks for coming in today.
No worries.
We're going to keep this conversation going in our private Facebook group, Accountants on Purpose. You're welcome to join us there.